So on and on, you'll hear from Republicans that they and their policies are not racist. No, not racist at all. And if you ever bring it up, well, then you're a race hustler, you're an SJW, and that these African Americans are not victims. No, what you need to do, and what they need to do is get off their ass and get a fucking job. Stop acting like victims. Well, here we actually have policy and proof that Republicans favor white people. And of course, it has to do with the recent changes to Medicaid. See, the Trump administration has now been allowing states to get waivers on work requirements. Now, originally, of course, they wanted to start having states be able to put in work requirements, and there's been a lot of states, a couple of states at least, that have actually been starting that. So they're like, okay, yeah, let's put work requirements on people on with Medicaid and with food stamps. So we're going to make you work for it if you're going to get any sort of government assistance. Well, HuffPost has a good example of work requirements being put on some and not on others. HuffPost explains, Michigan Republicans are pushing a new bill that would require Medicaid recipients in the state's mostly black cities to work to keep their health benefits, but would exempt some in the state's rural white residents from the same requirement. So understand what this is, right? So, hey, you black people, you lazy black people in the cities, well, you got to work for your benefits. But you poor rural white voters, don't worry, you don't have to work for your benefits. Waivers. Now, under the bill, Medicaid recipients in 17 mostly white counties, all represented by Republican senators, would be exempt from work requirements, according to an analysis by the Center for Michigan, which is, of course, a think tank. Medicaid recipients in the 6 municipalities with the highest unemployment rates, including Detroit and Flint, would have to work at least 29 hours a week to keep their health benefits. All 6 cities have black majorities or significant numbers of black residents. Now, the disparity stems from a provision in the bill that would lift the work requirements in counties with unemployment rates over 8.5%, but not from cities with similar joblessness rates. Since most urban counties in Michigan contain both high unemployment cities and richer suburbs, Michigan's biggest cities would be subject to the work requirements. Now, that would, of course, include Detroit. Now, Detroit is in the county, is in Wayne County, right? Now, Wayne County had an unemployment rate of 5.4% back in 2017. Now, that's pretty good. However, the city itself has a 9.3% unemployment rating, meaning that the people in the city are being hit with these work requirements, but the people out in the country are not. So, man, that is, I think it's pretty obvious what this is. See, rural white voters, you get to keep your benefits. But again, if you're in the city and you're an African American, well, then you got to work for your benefits. Stop leeching off the system. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Now, you can say, no, wait a minute here. You don't understand. Black people are unemployed because, well, even though there's plenty of opportunity, I mean, they live in the cities. The people out there in, rural Michigan, well, they can't help it. There's not a lot of jobs out there, so maybe we need to give them a waiver to help them out. Well, okay, well, look, let me show you why that is a disingenuous argument. All things being equal, if you were really worried about, saving taxpayer money, for example, because that's kind of what this is about, the whole work requirements thing. We got to save taxpayer money. We got to get people off the dole and get them back to work. Right? And work requirements is just one way to do that. So at least you can have your health insurance or your health care through Medicaid, but at least you're working for it, right? And you're giving back to the system, and you're not completely dependent on the government. Well, then why don't they tell the loser rural white Americans in these counties? Why don't they tell them to go move to the city so they can get a job? If there's more opportunity in the city, if they expect black people there that are in the city to be able to get a job easier because there are more jobs in the city, well, then why not? Why don't you just tell these rural white people to move to the city so they can get a job? Oh, but they don't. I mean, look, if black people have to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and not get special treatment, then, well, why don't white people? Why don't those white rural voters? Because it's not about that. What this is, of course you know what this is. This is racism. This is institutional racism, and it's basically about not letting those people have benefits. That's why these white people, these white voters, get a special pass. Oh, you're from a rural area and you can't find a job and you've got Medicaid. Well, that's okay. You can keep that without having to work. Look, I think it's fairly obvious, and it's not to blame people in rural America. I believe in this radical idea that everybody should have health care, right? But if you can't see that there's a racial animus to this, then it's because you don't want to see it. And besides, in reality, the vast majority of non-elderly adult Medicaid recipients without disabilities live in households in which someone is working. This is according to the Kaiser Family Foundation. And a majority of recipients already work. So what this is that doesn't even solve the problem. It's not about protecting taxpayers. It's about a dog whistle to the racist Trump base. This is Trump inspired. Now, of course, Republicans, they claim, no, what are you talking about? Racism? No. In fact, State Senator Mike Shirkey, who wrote this legislation, denies that there was any sort of discriminatory intent. No, none at all. No, of course not. No, we're not discriminating. We're just having to pick on the inner cities, which are majority African American, and put work requirements on them, to get them back to work because they're lazy. I mean, so they can have the dignity of work and pull themselves up by their bootstraps. But anyway, there's another quote here from Michigan Chamber lobbyist Wendy Block. Now, she told HuffPost that, quote, "We were just trying to be helpful." Oh, you were just trying to be helpful. Quote, "It was really just a simple suggestion, not one that we're married to." Well, now that you're getting in trouble for it, now that people are calling it out for being incredibly discriminatory, it was just a suggestion. We were just trying to help. We were just trying to help the poor black community. Who is this helping? It's not helping anybody. Look, again, I believe that we should all have healthcare. I believe healthcare is a human right. When you're like, okay, you're born, and guess what? You get access to a doctor. And even before that, your mother gets access to a doctor. And it's all paid for through taxes. Now, in that situation where everybody has healthcare through the government, do people get healthcare that don't work? Yeah. Because again, that is a human right. Everybody gets it. Now, some people might worry about, then who's going to work? Well, we have examples of where everybody has universal health care and still works. In fact, in a lot of places, or in every place, where they have that system, there's still a lot of employment. And not only that, but healthcare actually costs less per person overall. And a lot of people can create businesses and not be tied to a job based on whether or not they have healthcare. And not only that, but people who are mentally ill are taken care of, and often don't end up on the street and end up being productive. So there are so many benefits to having a universal healthcare system. Instead, what we're doing is that we're doing discriminatory government-run healthcare systems, and we're also doing private insurance that's for profit, which ends up leaving millions and millions of people out of the healthcare system and unable to get the healthcare that I believe that they all deserve. So, look, let me make one more point here. I think one of the biggest resistances against Medicare for all by a lot of Republicans in general is the idea that those people will end up getting helped by this as well. Racism is alive in America. Even if you have the blinders on, you don't see it, it is there. It does exist. Take the blinders off. Actually look at the situation through somebody else's shoes. Talk to people who are impacted by it. Talk to somebody different. Get to know what their struggles are. Get to understand things. And then you realize, oh, right, it is a problem. Yeah, it's not people running around in white sheets anymore, but it is apparent in our institutions and in the way we even take care of our own people. And this is a great example of that. Hey, everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.